In classrooms and city halls across the nation, something extraordinary is happening. We stand at the edge of a transformation, reshaping how we learn, how we lead, and how we serve our communities. Artificial intelligence isn't just another technology, it's a powerful catalyst for change, breaking down barriers, opening doors, leveling the playing field for students, citizens, and public servants alike. In our schools and universities, AI is creating space for deeper connection and discovery. Teachers are free to focus on students. Learning adapts in real time. Breakthroughs that once took years now happen in months. Powered by advanced AI tools from Amazon Web Services. And it's not just in education. Across our communities, AI is changing how we govern and respond. How we protect data while providing better services. From predicting crises before they unfold to turning data into action, governments are becoming more agile, more human, and more effective through the cloud. This isn't just about technology. It's about the student who discovers their potential, the researcher pushing boundaries, the community that feels heard and supported. The tools are here with AWS. The path is clear. Let's build a future where every student thrives, every citizen counts, and every community flourishes. Not tomorrow, but today.
Please welcome to the stage, Kim Majerus.
All right, can you hear me? All right, you can hear me. Welcome. My name's Kim Majerus, and I'm so excited. Right? It's going to happen. I knew it. I want to say first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the folks up in the conference center. But most importantly, this is my favorite time of year. Imagine for us in U.S. state, local education, global education is our opportunity. This is the conference that I look forward to every year. This year, especially so. This is my hometown. Let's see if I could get some pictures up there. This is a beautiful place that I call home, and this is the very first time we were able to bring it here to Chicago over my time of having the responsibility of state, local, and education. But on behalf of our entire AWS team, we're just excited that you joined us here at the Windy City. What makes this gathering special is the unique intersection of sharp minds and noble missions, from K-12 educators shaping young learners to higher education leaders who are preparing the workforce and the researchers of today and tomorrow. To state and local government officials who are serving their communities, and as well as those technical providers that are here in the audience and up in the expo hall that work to partner and innovate on behalf of education and government. When we come together sharing insights and experiences across domains, we create a powerful community of innovation and impact. But before we begin, I'd like to thank eRepublic for presenting the expo hall and hosting our amazing partners this year. I want to acknowledge all the exhibiting partners because without them, Imagine is not possible. And thank you for your support. So please make sure you take the time and visit them in the expo hall and collaborate, see how they could collaborate with you. I want to thank my AWS team for being a part of this. You make this happen and you make me so proud every year. And thank you, because I think the most important thing that I could do in the role that I have is to hope that I can inspire young ladies and young children to think about technology. This is the first time I'm able to have my daughters in the audience, and I brought some of their friends too. I want to push them to be girls in tech, so thank you. Sometimes I think they still try to figure out what it is that I do. But nonetheless, we're going to talk about reimagining. Today, I want to talk about artificial intelligence. We truly stand at a pivotal moment like the Industrial Revolution. You know, the dawn of the internet, think about then. But to truly grasp the magnitude of this shift, let's talk about the Chicago history, right? Let's use that as an example. Imagine Chicago in the aftermath of the Great Fire of 1871. It was a vibrant metropolis reduced to ashes. I still think there is something to do with McClary's cow, but I'm not going to go there right now. But rose from the ruins was not just a rebuilt city, but a reimagined one. Architects, engineers, and citizens seized the opportunity to innovate, to build bigger, stronger, smarter. And if you have the opportunity to fly at night, you could see when it's a clear sky, the entire metropolis of Chicago, and it's just so beautiful. They just didn't believe or rebuild what they thought they wanted. They rebuilt and reinvented their surroundings. They laid the groundwork for a modern skyscraper and ushered in a new era of urban planning. Today, we could actually debate that education and government are at a similar inflection point. Not from a destructive fire, but the blaze of the transformation of AI. And it is a moment that presents us with an opportunity to reframe, retrain, and truly re-energize the foundational pillars of our society today. You know, for decades, education has followed a very standardized model, but AI is challenging that one-size-fits-all approach with student engagement. Think about it. How did you learn? How I learned is going to be different. But when you think about what K through 12 and universities are doing, they're providing students 24/7 access to personalized AI-powered tutors that adapt at a unique pace at a student's learning style and identifying where they have those knowledge gaps. You know, AI is reimagining curriculum design, using data analytics to identify optimal learning paths and empower those teachers. It's creating adaptive assessments that go beyond the rote memorization of evaluate critical thinking and problem-solving skills. It's allowing educators and empowering them to focus on mentorship. We often think about teachers being the sage on the stage. It is no longer about that. It's really about fostering mentorship and creativity shoulder to shoulder with those learners, while AI is handling the heavy lifting of personalized content and delivery and all those administrative tasks that we put on our educators. Research is also being re-energized by AI's ability to analyze and synthesize vast data sets, identify patterns, and accelerate discovery and time to science. It is no longer about research that happens here, but it's an opportunity to take advantage of the global research opportunities that we have. AI is poised to be truly the great equalizer. For far too long, disparities in access, resource, and individual attention have widened the gap for students from different socioeconomic backgrounds, genders, and learning styles. AI can bridge those divides. It can provide accessible learning materials for diverse needs, offer unbiased feedback, create virtual environments where every student has the opportunity to thrive. It could democratize access and world-class education, transcending geographical and financial barriers. That's the role that we play here. The rapid evolution of AI requires parallel acceleration in our skills. Higher education institutions are not just teaching AI, they're retraining. They have to retrain their faculty and the students so that they could thrive in an AI-infused world. Career paths of the future are more dynamic than ever. AI necessitates lifelong learning. Universities was a place that we went, not a place that we stayed. Not that we want them to stay, but we want them to have a continuing relationship with the institutions because those are the institutions that are providing upskilling and reskilling. Retraining is not just about technical proficiency. It's about fostering adaptability, critical thinking, and human traits that truly AI cannot replicate. Think about it. You have to have a creative mind. There's the nuances, and most importantly, the emotional intelligence that is so important and sometimes lost. But retraining, we ensure our workforce remains competitive and our societies resilient. You know, just as AI is transforming education, it's also re-energizing government, enabling reimagining the services that were delivered in the past. What are the services that are needed in the future so that you are focused on your constituents? AI-powered government services enable citizens to easily navigate regulations across services and complete these simple transactions that at times took a lot of work. But this creates a more accessible, transparent, and responsive government, and by doing so, increase trust, reduce waste, and the ability to deliver a better outcome for their constituents, especially those that are underserved and marginalized. We're going to dive deeper into all these themes throughout the course of the conference, so trust me, this is not all you're going to get. You're going to get more. But right now, I want to talk about the first guest that we're going to have on stage. He was just a teenager in a landmark TV series, Roots. A few years later, he was the host and executive producer of Reading Rainbow. That show ran for 23 years and impacted generations of so many learners. And for those of you Trekkies out there, we cannot forget he'll always be known to me as Geordie LaForge. And just last year, I want to point this one out because it's amazing the opportunity that I've had to get to know more about him. He was actually awarded the National Humanities Medal for his lifelong work as an advocate for education and literacy. I am so honored to have him here with me today. Please welcome LeVar Burton to the stage.
Hey, y'all. Nah, come on. There's more spirit in this room than that. Hey, y'all.
Thank you. Gotta get them moving.
Gotta make sure that there are people who are alive, alert, right? And enthusiastic about this.
I'm enthusiastic, and I know that they are as well. But we have to start with something a little Chicago-ish. Okay. I could give a little twist on it, but Cubs or Sox?
Sox.
I did have a little shirt for you. I guess we should probably go return that one and go get.
The Sox invited me to throw out the first pitch.
Oh, all right. We'll have to work on team. We got to fix that. I'm a Cubs fan, so we'll just go north side, south side. We'll do that.
All right.
First and foremost, thank you so much for being here. I grew up, and I say that I kind of grew up a little bit after you did, but I do remember Roots, Reading Rainbow, and I do love Star Trek Next Generation. So we'll leave it at that. But going back to the baseball theme, you know what? You did say it's a whole new ballgame in the era of technology and humanity. And at AWS, we're genuinely hoping to help our customers use AI to transform education and government services. Right. But at the same time, we are committed to safe and responsible deployment of AI and that it's a force for good.
And that's so important.
I agree. So as someone who's used technology to revolutionize education, what principles should guide us as we integrate AI into learning?
I think best practices have to involve not just the needs of our students and charges, but they have to satisfy a basic sense of ethics and common decency and common sense. Human beings have a tendency to, at least and certainly in this day and age, monetize everything. And our children's education and the applications that AI present now and in the future, we may need to put the monetization in the background if we want to reach ecumenical reach, if we want this technology to be accessible to every child, everywhere. That has to be the mission. The dollar has to take a second position.
I agree. Absolutely. Education, it's important. I mean, you have children, you have a grandchild, I believe.
Adults, yeah.
You have grown adults. We see the evolution of education and how students are learning. And I think back to Reading Rainbow, which was in 1983. It was a long time ago. I know where I was at in 1983. That's the part that scares me, but we'll leave it at that. TV was a little counterintuitive because it was actually seen as a competitor to actual reading, picking up the book and reading. But wow, did it work, didn't it? I often tell my team, what got us here won't get us there.
Wow.
And I think about my kids and how they engage technology in their learning. I'm wondering, how would you reimagine Reading Rainbow for today's learners?
Well, we did. We turned it into an app, a digital concern, and proved that the concept was indeed solid, right? If you use the prevailing technology, if you provide kids on that technological platform with quality reading material, in our case, both on the television show and in the app, it was books and videos, right? You can engage them at a level. I always say you have to meet kids where they are before you can take them where you want them to go, right? You can engage kids and enhance their learning experience while they are not even aware how much they are learning.
Agree. Do you have a position on screen time and what's allowable? And can I tell you a number I want you to say?
Cubs. That's a tough question because sure, there are general rules of thumb, but every kid isn't the same and not every kid learns the same way. Now, are we talking screen time in general, or are we talking screen time divided up into educational activity or doom scrolling? Because there's a difference, as we all know, right? I believe that we are engaging in a grand experiment, y'all. Our kids are guinea pigs, and so are we to a large extent. We have no idea how this is going to shake down and shake out 20, 30 years from now. So we need to be mindful. I believe that screen time is not appropriate for a certain age of child. You have to allow those brain cells to develop before we bombard them with imagery and radiation. We just have to be very mindful. But that genie is out of the bottle. I mean, how young are kids getting cell phones, these days? Because A, everybody has them, and B, parents don't want to lose touch with their children during the course of the day. And I get it. It's a really dicey, dangerous world out there. So we have competing forces at work here, don't we? Yep. But at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the day, the safety of our children has to be our primary concern.
I agree. And I think about art or life imitating art.
Sure.
And I'm gonna do a little transition because you're right. Think about when we were learning as kids. It was the book, it was memorization, and I learned the same exact way as everybody else. But quite frankly, maybe I didn't learn the same, so to speak. But I'm gonna go to the Star Trek stuff because we talked about this the other day. When you think about life imitating art 30, 40 years ago, and when you played Geordi LaForge in Star Trek Universe, you portrayed a time when technology enhanced human potential.
Right.
Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry envisioned a hopeful future of technological advancement and equity. How can we ensure today's AI revolution follows that same optimistic forward vision that you were able to play years back?
Believe it or not, I think that there are a couple of generations of human beings who have been shaped in terms of their idea of technology and its applications by Star Trek. I believe there's some kid who used to watch the original series, those episodes with William Shatner reaching to that secret Velcroed place on his hip, right? Because there are no pockets in the future. I know, I've been there. And he would pull out his communicator, he'd flip it open, and he'd call Scotty on the ship. Scotty, beam me up. Well, that kid became an engineer, let's say, a designer of product, and is responsible for a piece of technology more prevalent than the toaster at one time on this planet, how many have used or seen someone use a flip cell phone? Come on, more than you, right? That which we focus our imagination on is what we tend to manifest in this realm. Human beings are manifesting machines. It's what we do. We think about it, we figure it out, and then we do it. And it's trial and error. It's trial and error. However, there are, as I say, plenty of engineers and designers who have embraced the Star Trek ethos because it's what they've been exposed to and have gravitated towards it because, quite frankly, Gene's vision of the future is one of the most positive out there. It's hopeful, right? And I think in terms of an AI, data is about as good as it gets. And science fiction writers have been grappling with this issue of artificial intelligence in humanoid forms since Isaac Asimov and Daniel R. Oliva and the rules, right? So I'm hopeful because I know how deeply Star Trek is embedded in the cultural consciousness.
It's a great segue into the next question. And I know you're writing your memoir. So we're going to take you back because just as many of those engineers have these visions that they saw through Star Trek, I think about your mom. Irma Jean was an English teacher. And you've said that she was your greatest inspiration. And recently you discovered that your grandfather and great-grandfather on your father's side were both educators in rural Arkansas. In fact, your great-grandfather, Pearl, was also the principal and co-founder of a public school for African Americans at a time when 20% of the state's Black population was illiterate. First, how did your mom shape your advocacy and views on education equity? And two, what lessons can we learn from educators like Pearl Burton who overcame resource limitations during their time?
Wow, great questions. My mother was my first teacher. She was an English teacher. So you spoke the King's English in Irma Jean's household. And you read, right? My mom was an avid reader. She always had at least 2, sometimes 3 books going for her own personal enjoyment. In Irma Jean's home, you either read a book or you got hit in the head with one. It was your choice, but you were going to have an encounter with the written word. But more than anything else, it was that example, right? That modeling, that reading was a natural, normal part of everyday living. We took 2 daily newspapers when I was growing up. Anybody remember newspapers? It was a part of our lives, an everyday part of our lives. And we need to send that signal. We need to model that behavior for our children.
I agree. And how many people actually delivered the newspapers? There you go. I think that's a lost skill for young kids.
Yeah, you have to have a car these days.
Yeah. They don't ride bikes either.
They don't ride bikes anymore.
Are they just waiting for it to show up? I think so. Going back to your family, because you have great examples of impacting early environments. So your great-grandfather, he actually served as a state legislator during the Reconstruction. It was a time of transformation in government services and citizen rights. Today, you might have heard me talk about this transformation period and rapid acceleration of AI technology. How can the governments out here ensure that technology advances promote rather than hinder equity and accessibility?
It's a big mission for governments, local, federal, state, municipal. Equity is the key to make this technology accessible, right? When my great-grandfather was in the legislature in Arkansas, he was fighting for equity, right? He was fighting for Black kids to have the opportunity to go to school. When I think about it, there is very little chance I could have turned out in any other way based on my family's input. I believe that there's such a thing as spiritual DNA, just as real, just as impactful as physical DNA. And the spiritual DNA that my ancestors have passed on to me make me the educator that I am. All the people in my family are educators in one way or another, and I feel that I wear that same mantle.
It's in your core.
It's in
Absolutely.
my DNA.
I think there's, yep, I'll do that. I saw that clap out there. I think it's some of the simple stuff that our communities are struggling with, and the accessibility piece. I mean, when you take a look, and I have some friends here from the UK as well, they were talking about how they engage with their citizens.
Right.
And a very large area, 80% of their constituents communicate via phone, yet very low percentages of the websites, tax payment bill system, or benefits programs are even ready for the accessibility to which is the device to which they interact with. So there's a lot of work that should and could be done, and we need to make sure that people aren't left behind.
Societal disconnect is real.
It absolutely is. It is about infrastructure, broadband devices, even electricity. How do we prioritize tech solutions that address these foundational gaps without sidelining the human-centric strategies?
Wow, that's a great question. Again, priorities, right? We have to make this technology and its ability to connect us and help us improve our lives. We have to acknowledge its role to play. We're very slow to recognize this because the technology is moving so quickly. We haven't even had an opportunity to universally upgrade the systems yet, or the devices the technology is delivered on, right? The world is moving at a pace that is lightning quick.
Light speed?
Light speed. And we need to do a better job of keeping pace, which means that we have to educate the next generation of learners for that which we don't know, right? We have to prepare them for a world that we haven't encountered yet, which means we have to make sure that their minds are facile and that they are able to adopt, right, and adapt at a very rapid pace. Otherwise, they're going to fall way behind, much in the same way we have, right, in terms of keeping up with the technology on a universal basis.
Absolutely. I think about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, again, this type of event, we weren't really talking AI to the extent that we are. This year, now we have agentic AI. And I think about the educators, whether it's K through 12 or higher education, the struggle to adjust their curriculum so quickly on the fly and be okay with their learning in that process.
Absolutely.
It's a tough job for the educators.
Without question.
We often, I know there's a push and pull of what comes first. At the end of the day, it's those educators that are standing there shoulder to shoulder with those students.
They're in the trenches. They are, on the front lines. They are at what I call the point of purchase, where the next generation is concerned. And we yes, there is a responsibility to teach the curriculum, but it's how we teach them how to solve problems. That's really what I'm talking about in terms of developing that sort of facility for thinking around problems and solving them.
Thank you for that. All right, I'm going to ask one last question.
Are we at the end already?
I know, it went too quick.
Wow.
So what excites you the most about the future of education and public service in this age of that rapid change?
Wow. Can I share a story with you?
Please.
My very first encounter with ChatGPT was enlightening. Because I was reluctant to play with it, and a friend of mine convinced me there's nothing to be afraid of. And so I thought, okay, I'll be a smarty pants, and I asked it to write me a 3-minute speech about the importance of literacy and education in America in the voice of LeVar Burton. It spit me back out at me. And at first it was unnerving, right? It was sort of discombobulating. It was weird that in seconds it had gone and synthesized speeches that I had made, television appearance, in seconds, and brought me a 3-minute speech that I recognized as things that I had said in the right syntax, voice. It was me. Well, if it can do that, right? If we have enough data, if we have enough data to feed the beast, then there is no limit to what we cannot learn. What we need is cooperation on all levels. And in order to have that sort of cooperation, we all need to adopt the same level of priority at making this technology, A, accessible, and B, safe.
Absolutely. So I said it was only one question. Just to double click on that.
Cubs.
No, it still comes. It still comes. I got you. See, you'll see it comes next time. When you think about all of us having that same priority,
Yeah.
and because we have private sector, public
Yes.
sector, a variety of people that should be playing, what does that
Competing agendas.
competing agendas, but what would be your recommendations to all those in the room to say, hey, we need to take our agenda, put it aside, and focus on the end game?
Make our kids the priority. Our
Absolutely.
children have to be our priority. And our investment in our children is an investment in the future. Unless we can agree on the end game, right, which is the next generation. You see what I did there?
I did, very good.
Unless we can agree on the end game, then then it's all ones and zeros. But if we have a common goal, there's nothing we cannot accomplish.
Amen. Thank you so much, LeVar. It's so amazing. Thank you. Everyone, LeVar. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, I don't know what I could say after that. That's going to be how exciting. And I grew up watching him on Roots, then reading Rainbow, Star Trek Next Generation is one of my favorite. But it's art, life reenacting art, and it was such an honor to have him. So thank you. With AI, we can't be deterred by any of the challenges that we have ahead. We must be inspired by those possibilities. This era truly presents an unprecedented opportunity to fail fast and learn quick, to embrace the agility and continually improve. AI is just not a tool. It is a catalyst for building a better tomorrow together, a tomorrow that is more equitable, efficient, and enlightened. Today, we have with us today a remarkable group of visionaries who dared to dream big, who may have started small, but moved fast and built smarter. They have laid the foundation for a new era, and their stories show how AI is actively re-energizing, reframing, retraining our world. I'm confident that when you leave here today and the entire conference, you will be inspired, and it maybe makes you think a little bit bigger. But I'm going to bring it close to home. When the Wisconsin Department of Revenue looked at their citizen services, they saw an opportunity to transform. Their challenge was significant. They were handling more than 700,000 citizen inquiries annually. That's about 3,500 calls an agent. I know my kids like to talk on the phone. Trust me, I don't want to take 3,500 calls. But nonetheless, Secretary David Casey and his team worked with AWS to reimagine how technology could better serve their residents, cut hold times, and reduce outages and costs. But I would rather have you hear this inspirational story, so please, let's let Secretary Casey tell you the story. Come on up stage.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Glad to be here and present to you what the Wisconsin Department of Revenue is imagining for our future. I'm going to start with an inspirational quote. If we have data, let's look at data. If all we have are opinions, let's go with mine, right? Tax and Revenue Administration doesn't leave a lot of room for opinions, so the Wisconsin Department of Revenue, I jumped forward a little bit. Let me go back. There we go. So the Wisconsin Department of Revenue uses data to inform decisions, drive processes, and engage our team. I'm going to share with you a little bit of who we are, what drives our innovation, and give you some examples of how we've teamed with AWS on our data journey. First of all, who is the Department of Revenue? You all pay your taxes to the Department of Revenue, but who are we? We are a large financial institution. Last year, we processed over $21 billion in tax revenue for the state of Wisconsin. As Kim said, we answered over 737,000 phone calls at the agency. We processed 7 million tax returns. We work with 1,925 local governments. We also collected $388 million in tax debt and statewide debt. That's for those local governments. We are the debt collector for over 600 local governments. And finally, the biggest number up here, we sold 188 million lottery tickets in the state of Wisconsin. We've done all of that over the years with just over 1,000 employees. For the last 10 years, that number has not changed. But our legislature continues to pass statutes that add to our work. Our taxpayers, our customers, have increasing expectations that are becoming modern, using modern tools and such. So we have to be innovative. Innovation is essential to what we do. Well, how do we do that? We do that through a culture of innovation. We created a culture of innovation that is customer focused. Everything that we do is for the Wisconsin taxpayer. It needs to be secure, it needs to be accurate, and it needs to be fast. But when we think about our culture needs to be workforce driven. It's got to be driven from within. So what we did a few years back, we started a strategic planning process. We used appreciative inquiry, and we spoke with over 1,000 of our employees. We had focus groups. We asked them what their strengths were, where they saw opportunities, what they aspired to be, all keeping in mind what are the results that we want to achieve as an organization. And through that, we ended up with a very transformational process. It engaged our entire team, and it positioned ourselves for the innovation that we're now facing today. We look at data-driven innovation in 4 key areas of the department. First of these is tax refund fraud. Last year, we stopped over $200 million in tax fraud from fraudsters trying to attack our system. While we do that really well, those fraudsters are getting more creative. They're using AI themselves. And so we need to at least stay up with them, but we also want to be ahead of the curve. So we are always looking to innovate in the area of tax refund fraud. We also want to be more effective with our audit selection. When we select audits or select taxpayers and tax returns for audit that don't result in a change on a tax return, we've wasted our time. But more importantly, we've wasted the taxpayers' time. So we want to use data to look at taxpayer characteristics, tax return characteristics, and identify those that are going to end up in an adjustment, saving everybody time, being more effective, and being more efficient. Thirdly, our debt collection actions. We have that $388 million in debt that we collected. Some taxpayers react to a letter. Some will like to get a phone call from us. Others won't pay their debt until we garnish their wages or put a lien on their property. Well, we can use data to examine the characteristics of taxpayers and target and focus a particular debt collection strategy based on the tax type, where they live, what their income is, and we can be more effective in doing that. Thirdly, with customer service, we want to be proactive in making our taxpayers voluntarily compliant. That means educating them. That means using data to identify what are the issues that are most causing problems with tax filing. We also use it to train our customer service reps. Can we use AI to suggest answers while they're on the phone with the taxpayer, citing the statute, citing rules and such? We can get our customer reps up the learning curve much more quickly if we use data to that end. This approach that we've had with data-driven solutions has resulted in a couple of successes I want to share with you today. The first is our Amazon Connect call center. This was a prime opportunity to improve system availability, quality, and functionality within the Department of Revenue. We engaged with the AWS team and went from workshop ideas to go live in just 4 short months. We use Amazon Connect contact lens for real-time monitoring and analytics. And we use Amazon Poly to deploy messages quickly and efficiently. As you can see up here, the results were astounding. We had a 60% cost savings in our call center technology. We had a 33% decrease in peak season hold time. I am very proud to say that our average hold time right now is under 40 seconds. Compare that to any place else that you call. Also impressive. Since we've gone live, we've had 0 outages. Our previous technology, we had 51 in a year. So that's almost once a week our technology would go down. So we've had huge success with the Amazon Connect call center, and we're looking forward to expanding the functionality there. The second area I want to share with you is a little bit more complex, but we used Amazon QuickSight to improve our business rule effectiveness. So all those 7 million tax returns that get processed through our system, that goes up against a whole bunch of rules. We check for fraud, we check for identity verification, we run it against our statutes and a number of different rules to make sure that everything's processed correctly. When something doesn't get processed correctly, it gets put on a work queue. What you see up here, really detailed, but what you see up here is our most common work queues. If it's a light blue, that work queue resulted in an adjustment. If it was a dark blue, there was no adjustment. Well, you can guess, we probably want to see a lot more light blue up here than dark blue, but there's a few rules that we ended up not changing anything on the return. Again, that's a waste of our time, and it also may suspend that return and keep a taxpayer from getting a refund. So we needed to change this. We need to examine our business rules and find more effective ones. We did this using Amazon QuickSight. We asked QuickSight what changes we could make to suspend fewer returns while also maximizing the adjustments that we make. It was like, boom. Not only did QuickSight suggest which rules to change, it detailed how to change the rule, and it showed us what the results would be given the model data. What would take normally weeks of post-tax season analysis by our team is now accomplished in a matter of minutes. We've moved from opinions to using data to make decisions. The Wisconsin Department of Revenue is always innovating. We have a culture of innovation that creates continuous improvement. Our collaborative and iterative approach has energized our team and helped us imagine new solutions. This is how the Wisconsin Department of Revenue invests strategically in forward-looking and data-driven solutions. Thank you for your time today, and I'm excited to learn what all of you have innovated in over the next couple of days here.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking at that lotto number. I've got my hand in that pot for sure. But thank you, Secretary Casey. You know, AWS is so proud to support your agency's modernization efforts and your commitment to providing exceptional service for our neighbors up north in Wisconsin. I had a couple of, anybody here Green Bay Packer fans? Yeah. All right. I have to say, even though I'm a Chicago girl, I am still a Green Bay Packer fan. I'm sorry, Monsters of the Midway, I'm just not ready to go back to the Bears. Nonetheless, you know, other states are also modernizing with Connect 2. South Carolina's Department of Social Services leveraged Amazon Connect to improve citizen contact services across 19 different contact centers over the last 3 years. These contact centers handled more than 2 million calls with 100% uptime, 100% uptime. Think about state of California. The DMV faced challenges like 45,000 calls and 2-hour wait times. 2-hour wait times. Why does someone sit on the phone with the DMV for 2 hours? But nonetheless, after they implemented Amazon Connect, they achieved 50% self-service usage and enabled 24/7 basic information access. Their transformation reduced call handling times by up to 30 seconds and provided automatic callbacks, and this is the best part, resulted in a 90% customer satisfaction rate. That was significant from where they started. But you know what makes Connect so powerful? It is the connection to all the data, and more importantly, the insights that you could achieve, and you heard that with Wisconsin. Just like Chicago's impressive architecture heritage, think about the data. That is the foundation of your organization's future. You need a strong data foundation to build a modern, efficient organization itself. Your data is unique to your organization. It's your differentiator. When you combine the data with the power of AI, you're not just improving operations, you're reimagining the art of possible for your institution and for your communities that you serve. The future belongs to organizations that can harness their data most effectively, and AWS wants to help you do just that. Now, take Cornell University, for example. They built a strong data foundation and harnessed AI's transformative power to reframe what is possible. Under the leadership of CIO Ben Maddox, Cornell's comprehensive AI strategy has streamlined administrative processes and enhanced student experiences. It's a powerful success story about how the robust foundation compared to drive measurable results, like 40% more efficient operations. But I know Ben can do a far better job than I can talking about it because he's so passionate, and probably one of the most, you really need to go to recruiting for Cornell. You had my daughter saying, hey, maybe I should be considering Cornell. But nonetheless, I would love to welcome Ben to the stage. Ben Maddox, please join us.
Don't worry, I'm not going to dance. 1865, a time of great tumult and transformation in the United States. The end of the American Civil War, the peak of a whole new wave of industrial revolution. It is in that backdrop that Ezra Cornell, a 58-year-old tech entrepreneur creating the first instant messaging system, Telegraph, partnered with an unusual partner, Andrew Dixon White, a 32-year-old scholar and New York State senator, imagined a new American university that would change the world, to do the greatest good for the greatest number, for students of all backgrounds, coeducational, socioeconomic diversity. Students from all colors, races, ethnicities, and from around the world would come together to do the greatest good for the greatest number. It wasn't a motto. Cornell was a revolution compared to the 250 institutions of higher learning in the US at the time, which served mostly the already educated and wealthy. Cornell was meant to bring together collective strengths to create a new opportunity for the American student. These two visionaries translated an idea of innovation and change 160 years later into one of the great institutions of higher learning in the United States, with a local mission as a land-grant institution, a regional mission as an employer of excellence in the central New York and New York City areas, a global research leader, a national research leader, and a regional leader in areas like agriculture and veterinary in all 78 counties of New York State. They translated innovation into a meaningful change. We are translators of the kind of moment that Secretary and that Kim just talked about. How do we see ourselves as translators, translating a vision into something that can be real and active? So I teach a graduate course on narrative and game design, and I teach a doctoral level course on innovation. And one of the things we do is called the Aunt Sally test. So I don't know, like when I'm at a dinner party or a cocktail thing and I say I work in IT, you kind of see people's eyes glaze over, right? My husband's a CFO, it's even worse because they assume he's cheap and mean. So the Aunt Sally test is meant for my students to have 2 minutes to tell a story about an idea that they have that is audience aware, that is clear and engaging. So I had my own Aunt Sally test about 19 months ago. My father pulled me aside, an 89-year-old Southern Baptist minister, and he said, I have a question for you. So now I sat down. I was like, I don't know where this is going, but I must be in trouble. And he said, what is this whole artificial intelligence thing, right? And before I dazzled him with my knowledge of machine learning and artificial intelligence and the history of this at Cornell and the first experiment, I thought, am I passing my own Aunt Sally test? An 89-year-old, incredibly intellectually curious person is asking me, what is the big deal about this? It's my job to translate that. I said, you know, Dad, when you visited us upstate and we took that beautiful walk around this pond where there was this pretty boathouse with our Rhodesian Ridgeback Lola, what did you see? And I said, why don't we sit down right now on my iPad and you tell me what you saw in all your good preacherly language, and I'll translate that into something real. This image, my father quoted to me in about 9.5 minutes, and I typed as he spoke, and this emerged. And he said, I said the words, you typed the words, AI created this, I see what the fuss is about. And that was enough. And I didn't get into machine learning and AI and all my dazzling knowledge. So when I, as a newly minted CIO, had an opportunity to think about Cornell University's AI strategy, I started with the Aunt Sally test and drew on the mission to do the greatest good for the greatest number. To do the greatest good for the greatest number meant that I needed to be community aware, have a lot of conversations so that a framework would emerge, a model would emerge of experimentation that draws on the university's strengths, and ultimately a set of outcomes and partnerships that I think can change both the individual and the world around us. This picture is one of our first university-wide AI listening events. 700 people came together to hear speakers, to ask questions, students, faculty, staff, alumni, external partners. We just told stories about what this could mean to us. We took that and we turned that into some really fun things like an AI hackathon. If you've been to any kind of hackathon, it is totally over-caffeinated and chaotic and incredibly fun. But these students brought real-world problems to solve with AI. What we learned in these conversations was you couldn't just have a great idea, you couldn't just have a great vision, you needed some kind of framework. So we produced a new framework, which you see here, kind of working from the bottom to the top. We needed a lab to build this stuff. We needed the insights coming from the campus on the left side, and we needed an advisory council. I loved when LeVar Burton talked about the importance of ethics and boundary conditions here. We wanted a lab which drew on the great experimental and discovery concepts that Cornell is so great at. And we wanted an advisory council of faculty, students, and staff to help shape the boundary conditions of the ethics, the policy, and the potential investments, valuable dollars for us, into AI. This framework helped us a great deal think about education, research, and administrative changes, the kind that Kim referenced. The second thing is, you might know that universities and your state organization or your institution may not always turn on a dime when it comes to change and agility. Well, Cornell didn't either. So how do we build on the strengths of that? Experimentation and discovery. Universities are great at that. You know your culture and you can build on the strengths that you have. The next thing was the criticality of partnerships. A framework, a model of experimentation and partnerships. Who do we turn to but AWS there? We tried to save the dogs with a new chat tool. We tried to save the birds with a new Merlin tool. If you're part of the Lab of Ornithology, 8 million subscribers. AI is critical to this. We converted medical records from the Revolutionary War so that we can study public health in the New York City area. And lastly, we partnered with AWS on infrastructure, engineering, and consulting to think about how our students were being impacted by AI, an incredible opportunity. Lastly, I was thinking about, rather than starting with tools and strategy, we started with mission and we thought about preparation. Abraham Lincoln used to say, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Plan, 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 listen, 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 then we can act. And that was an incredibly important one for us. Lastly, you may wonder where that memory came from. When I found this picture actually at my dad's house on the left from his trip to visit us. His 9-minute description of what it meant to spend that time with us and utilize AI translated into that thing on the right. I would ask all of us, what are you imagining? What partnerships, what models, and what frameworks can you take back to your community, to your own learning, to your region, to your institution, and to your organization? Start today. Imagine something big. Thanks.
Wow. I love that picture. It's amazing to see it actually come to life. And it is the power of storytelling that actually hones in and really forces us to think how we describe things. But Ben, you're doing amazing work at Cornell. You think big, you dive deep, and you have a bias for action. So I absolutely love it. Those are some of my favorite leadership principles. But your insights into Cornell's transformation highlight not only the power of technology, but also the critical need to retrain and prepare our workforce for the AI-driven future. You know, this is why we are so uber focused at Amazon on growing and improving and lessening that skills gap. So last month, not sure if you heard, but Amazon joined more than 60 different organizations at the signers of the White House Pledge to American Youth. It's investing in AI education. We're committed to creating educational and workforce development opportunities for young people, and we look forward to contributing to this critical national effort in support of K-12 learners across the US. There's more details to come, but we're gonna let the White House announce that. And for learners who are a little bit further along in their journey, I wanna point out that we launched the AWS Skills to Jobs Tech Alliance in 2023. It is to address the skills gap between industry needs and educational training. The Tech Alliance helps educational institutions incorporate real-world industry curricula and preparedness for learners into entry-level technical roles. Here in Illinois, we are partnered in the Tech Alliance with Illinois Tech, the University of Illinois at Chicago, and the City Colleges of Chicago to provide these students the skills that are required not only to get the job, but also to keep the job. So we have a booth at the Expo Hall, so please come see my team on the Skills to Job if you want to learn a little bit more about it. You know, I'm also delighted about some of our customers that are here from across the pond. They've been so warm and kind to me over the years. We have several different universities from the UK, and I'm super excited that they're here. For example, we have 15 different leaders. We have the University of East London, who are launching an innovation sandbox for students, the University of Bath, who is also delivering with AWS on AI teaching and learning, and the University of Exeter, who are empowering educators and students with an enhanced research excellence, developing a digitally enabled solutions and really help us plan for a sustainable future. So thank you to my folks in the UK. Are they in the room? Where are they at? Where are they? They got them locked up in the, oh, there you are, hey! I'm like, did they have you locked up in your UK study room? I'm like, I surely hope that they let them in, but thank you so much. You're always so warm when I come over to the UK, and I just am so excited to host you here in Chicago. And when we think about a sustainable future, I'm super excited to see what the state of Georgia is doing at the Horizons Innovation Lab. We got that one? Oh, we do. All right, I just want to make sure I was in alignment here. This lab is a creative space where government agencies are collaborating with qualified partners to secure, in a very secure environment, on projects that will help the state. It's powered in part by AWS. The lab's mission is to test AI solutions to ensure they're effective, safe, and ethical before they actually are adopting them into their government operations. It's a super exciting time for the state of Georgia team. And quite frankly, we met with their state CIO last month, and she's just so powerful and energized by the opportunity that it's going to provide. But when it comes time for innovation, it is often our ed techs and our gov techs that are leading the charge in partnership with all of you. For example, Pearson, it's a global learning company and a longtime AWS partner. Earlier this year, we expanded our collaboration to accelerate the delivery of AI-powered personalized learning products and services. Pearson and AWS and all our collaborators believe in developing new skills and competencies. And proof of that, everyone get out your phone. Now I feel like I could disrupt the whole world. Get out your phone and take a picture or link to that code there. The reason why it's important, we partnered with Pearson to provide an AI skills assessment, and it'll help you understand what your strengths and your opportunities are. And with that QR code, or you could go to, I think it's genaitestdrive.com, take the opportunity, see where you're gonna go. Because at the end of the day, it's about bridging the gap between what you know and what you'll need to know as you continue and grab onto this AI crazy that we have ahead of us. But you could decide for yourself how and where you want to gain that learning. And it's through our trusted education partners. And it's also, not to point out the obvious, we also have Skill Builder, which I know many of you use today. Please take the opportunity to take a look at the journey, because learning is not a thing that you do. It is something that you have to do continually in order to stay ahead. So hopefully everyone got that link. And if not, talk to your team, they'll get it to you. We have extensive, comprehensive AI and machine learning services that transform organizations through secure cloud infrastructure, Bedrock pre-trained foundation models, and Amazon Q Enterprise and AI Assistant. Together, these integrated solutions enable organizations to leverage advanced AI capabilities while maintaining security, productivity, and making AI both accessible and practical for government and education institutions. And we want to encourage you to engage in these transformational tools. That's why we launched the Generative AI Impact Initiative last summer. It's a 2-year, $50 million investment that supports public sector organizations using AWS GenAI services and infrastructure. We've had almost 300 customers, including Cornell, who received promotional credits, training, and technical expertise to support their projects. So it's important to know we want to do this with you. So please, it's open and it remains open till June 30th, 2026. And there's so much more opportunity. So please go and sign up. And there's another QR code, so you can take that one too. But these are just really some of the programs that we have available. We have plenty of opportunities to support your missions and help you explore transformative technologies, whether you're focused in research, maybe social impact, maybe migration acceleration, or something else. AWS is committed to providing you the funding opportunities to help you get to your mission. It's great. I've heard weave through the system about working backwards from the problem statement. What problem are you trying to solve? And I think that's the part that we excel at best. We're here to help you see the future. And I love Jordy for pointing that out. Look, I'm even calling him Jordy LeVar. But connect with your account team. They're there and they want to help support you. But let's go back to AI for a moment, because I want to share a couple more stories. Customers across education and government are leveraging AI to fundamentally re-energize their operations. It allows them to actually focus on what matters most, the mission. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I want to make sure I'm ahead. For example, Vanderbilt University. The Gene and Alexander Hurd Libraries recently launched Vanderbilt Cloud Innovation Lab for academic libraries and applied digital preservation. The groundbreaking initiative combines the university's expertise in library science with AWS cloud technologies. The lab actually features student fellows working alongside with subject matter experts to help them rapid prototyping sprints to develop open source solutions for digital archiving challenges. This innovation and initiative really provided Vanderbilt, but a broader library of digital content communities with the opportunity to collaborate quick and fast. Take a look at North Carolina's Division of Employment Security, who launched Gen AI-powered virtual assistants using Bedrock. The assistant guides individuals through the unemployment insurance claims process and helps the agency to uncover process improvement. We worked with an agency, and I know I'm a little off script, but I'm going to say anyways, we worked with an agency that looked at the 22 pages of what an individual had to put through the system. But it's these types of opportunities that technology actually allowed them to take a moment, reflect of what they had, and those 2,700 inquiries that actually required human touch were able to be solved quicker and faster. Let's think about our edtechs and our govtechs and all the ISVs that are helping transform how we learn, grow, and deliver vital citizen services. They are re-energizing our efforts to pursue bold strategies for the communities that we serve. And by harnessing AWS's AI capabilities, we have some amazing partners that I'm going to bring on the stage. It's Anthropic, Central Square, and Instructure, who are revolutionizing learning and citizen services through personalized, data-driven examples. So we have these leaders from each of these organizations. I think they're going to come up on the stage, but they're driving changes that will help shape our collective future. Please welcome our panelists to the stage. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
See you.
So glad to have everyone join us on stage. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm Kimberly Williams. It is my honor to be here with all of you, but certainly with this powerhouse panel of our partners, which help us every day deliver AI solutions and mission-based systems to our customers. So thank you all. I'd like to take a moment and have you introduce yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Derry. I'm the product lead for education at Anthropic, and I'm just grateful to be here today.
Hi, I'm Murray Kaminsky. I'm the Vice President of Cloud at Central Square. Just give you a little bit of picture of who we are. We service 8,000 agencies, and we touch about 3 out of 4 of all the citizens in the US with the services that we deliver through our customers.
Well, I'm Zach Pendleton. I'm the Chief Architect at Instructure.
Thank you again for joining us. Kim spoke a lot about this being our Chicago moment, our ability to rebuild something better, create something better, and help our customers really retrain, reimagine, and re-energize what we're doing for citizens and students alike. So I'd like to take the opportunity for each of you to kind of talk a little bit about what that means to you. AI has certainly moved beyond the buzzword stage, and we see that every day in the solutions that you all are delivering. So can you tell us, what's one way that your AI technology is already making a measurable difference in how your organization helps institutions or governments? And what benefits are they really seeing so far? Derry.
Happy to start. Anthropic is an AI research lab. And so AI is obviously at the core of all our products and technology, which also means that the impact can be quite broad depending on the persona that's using our products. On education specifically, with students, we see them really diving deeper into course materials. With faculty, we see them iterating on course content faster before classes start. And we're also experimenting with newer products like Claude Code to work with universities to see how we can accelerate research processes as well. But overall, actually, I think some of the most kind of exciting use cases and impact is yet to come. as our product and models get rapidly better and better.
Awesome. One of the things I think was interesting that we learned about Anthropic when we were doing kind of our prep, and it relates to what LeVar Burton was saying, is the founders of Anthropic are actually brothers and sisters who were inspired by their mother that was a librarian. So as he said, that having that in your DNA really seems to make a difference. So I think that's quite inspiring. So thank you. Ray, what about you?
Sure. In our case, and I think I would maybe respond to this answer through talking about our cloud journey, and then I'll weave that needle back through and tie the AI into that. We serve a number of agencies in the public sector who are citizen facing, and we want to do as much as we can to improve the experience of interactions with the citizens that they serve. And it's been a journey of adopting cloud to where our customers used to ask us why cloud, and we would have to sell that to them. That's not the question anymore. The question they're asking us is, how fast can I get to your cloud? They come to us with concerns about fires in California and floods in Texas and all those concerns that they have. And you know that these budget cycles that we have in the public sector, they have a very long tail, right? So everybody's trying to do less with more. So if with our partners at AWS, if we can focus on those things for them, that allows them to do more with less. Now to thread that needle back into how that ties into AI, our CEO threw the gauntlet down. It was taking us month and a half to onboard our customers, and they were asking us to go faster. He said, how do we get that down to 10 days? So we wrote a couple of onboarding AI agents that are helping our customers onboard. It looks at their current configurations on premise, maps that into our cloud optimized, efficient workloads that we've developed with AWS as help, maps that in there, and we've managed to get our customers onboarding time, our existing customers onboarding time down to 10 days with the help of some AI agents that we developed. So it's been amazing to watch.
That speed to delivery is a kind of a consistent theme we're hearing today. Heard it from Secretary Casey and from Ben at Cornell, the amazing speed at which people are able to adopt this and really make an impact.
Yeah, I would second that. I know at Instructure, AI certainly has changed what we deliver. It's meant that we're able to take a lot of workflows that were traditionally very painful, time-consuming, or challenging for teachers and streamline those and really shrink that gap between instructor intent and action inside of the system, which is great because it keeps people out of our software and in the classroom. I would say it's also changed how we deliver that software. It's allowed us to really recommit to the principles of Agile. And as someone who grew up developing software, Agile really shaped how we think about software delivery. But while those principles still apply, we found the practices around them have shifted a lot for us. And we've been able to pull a lot of ideation, a lot of experimentation forward into design and product management. And then we've been able to speed up engineers and really let them focus on those hard, complex problems.
Amazing. And Ray and I were having that same conversation about how agile development and now AI development kind of have those similarities. Okay, I'd like to move on to kind of that concept that Kim talked about reimagining, and what does that really mean to you? So Derry, I'm going to start with you. It has been a pretty exciting couple of weeks at Anthropic, and you recently announced your Claude for Education product is now available on AWS Marketplace. Why is that important, and what does it mean to the audience here?
Yeah, so first of all, AWS is a very, very important partner of ours. And so I think, to deepen that partnership, it only makes sense that we want to put even more of our products on AWS Marketplace. It's really just the API before. I think in more practical terms, though, having Claude for Education on the AWS Marketplace greatly accelerates kind of like, the procurement process, especially for universities that, are already working with AWS and have these contracts that they can then draw down from. And then on the marketplace, there's also these features like consolidated billing statements and the ability to do private offers. It just really allows us to meet universities where they are in terms of how they procure software and how they procure services.
Great. Zach, I'm actually going to turn to you because you also had a pretty exciting announcement and around Ignite AI. And Ignite AI delivers confidence, simplicity, substantial educational value, enabling educators and learners to leverage AI. What does that really mean, and why is this so exciting?
Yeah, so this is something that certainly means a lot to me. It's about taking AI, thinking deeply about where educators are spending their time today, and about helping them to deliver more of the experiences to students that they would if they had all of the time, all of the resources, all of the money in the world. Right? We've looked at those bottlenecks and tried to remove them. So that means using AI, first, as I mentioned, to identify really complex workflows and streamline and simplify those. Things that take educators a lot of cognitive load but don't give them a lot of satisfaction. The other piece is really thinking about how educators ought to be interacting with these types of systems. And so last week, we just announced our Ignite agent, which takes an agentic chatbot powered by AWS Bedrock, embeds it right inside of Canvas, takes advantage of all of these open APIs we already had to allow instructors to just describe what they want to have happen in the system, and then to have this always on, always patient TA who can help them orchestrate and accomplish those tasks.
Absolutely amazing. And it seems it's very consistent with what LeVar and Kim were talking about in terms of how do you make sure you have the access and the safety all at once.
Certainly.
Okay, Ray, kind of a similar question for Central Square. One of the things that we talked about in our prep calls was that the ability for AI to not just be a standalone thing that's happening, or as you called it, almost that superficial engagement of AI, but really start to dive deep to deliver that mission value. How is Central Square doing that?
So if you look at our public safety agencies that we serve, they really want, what they want back from us the most is time. They want officers out in the field. They want them focused on serving our citizens. They want them delivering value. So this really gives me an opportunity to talk about Centerline AI, which are a set of AI tools that we have developed that focus on keeping our officers and first responders out there serving their communities more effectively. So what we focused on with Centerline AI is we do things like transcribe the video that's coming from the camera and turn those into effective narratives. We take forms and feed them, second only to doctors' offices. I think government agencies love their forms, but nobody really cares to fill them out. So if we can eliminate that sort of mundacity, if that's a word, mundacity, from people's day-to-day work with AI, we've given them back more time to focus on more important things. Those are the kinds of problems that we're really looking to solve with AI. And I just want to tie back to another theme that's everybody's mentioned. We want to always have complete transparency in what we're doing with our AI. So when it comes down to the actual important points where we're making a decision, there's always a human in that loop right now, making those important decisions.
I'm going to stick with you for a second. As we look at how we're reimagining it, and you just kind of described that, there's the retraining component of that that's so important as well. And given your role in supporting public agencies, how are you making sure that those employees are able to do not only just more with less, but really embrace that technology and get that retraining so that they can focus on more mission critical activities?
Cubs. I'm kidding. See what I did there? No, I think, again, it's about finding those small problems that we can help them focus on and relieve them of those burdens, and really get them to the point where they're doing those simple things where there isn't a lot of retraining, right? We're just removing those smaller things so that they can raise their focus level from not dealing with those things that take up cognitive load. We're terrible as human beings that we think we can multitask, but I see you in that Teams meeting looking at your second monitor, and so AI is really there at a level where it's sorting things out at a level where we can sort of multitask better, right? Without all the retraining, if you will.
Great. Derry, how about you? Anthropic is helping faculty and students build their AI literacy. And how do you see your solutions really helping educators develop the skills they need to integrate that into their curriculums and into their learning plans?
Yeah, we really take a multi-layered approach to addressing AI fluency. So very directly, we actually just recently released an AI fluency course to the public. And so, for students and faculty, we're really trying to arm them with the knowledge that they need to go into this, increasingly AI-enabled future. The second layer is that when we actually sign and partner with universities, we have something called the Train the Trainer program, where we work with faculty champions to enable them with kind of Claude and AI best practices that they can then go disseminate to their respective departments. The last layer is kind of in product. we have something called learning mode, which are essentially pre-built templates and settings where essentially we pre-prompt Claude to be in a more tutor-like and Socratic answering mode so that it's actually enabling deeper learning versus just your kind of typical chatbot experience.
Makes sense. Zach, we've heard about the growing skills gap earlier, and how are your solutions help kind to close that gap and really address some of the accessibility that we talked about with LeVar and other times throughout the sessions
certainly.
today?
It's so interesting when you think about educational credentials today. We think about credits, we think about degrees, and certainly those have been around my entire life and long before that. But if we ask why, it's really a question of what we could scale, right? Those are coarsely grained because they had to be for us to recognize that learning. But I think we all know and have experiences of our most important learning rarely happens inside of a classroom. And AI is such a great tool at being able to capture human learning and human experience without disrupting it. And so, we've seen AI being used, and we certainly have partnered with schools to use it as a companion to students to help understand what they're working on. First, meet them where they are to be able to coach and steer that learning organically as it happens, but then also to recognize it in credentialing and skills programs that are much finer grained and I think better capture the totality of human experience and learning.
So really achieve that personalized learning and ability to kind of bring everyone along the journey.
Certainly, both in content delivery and in recognizing the credential.
So now is the fun part, and I find this to be the most inspirational, is when we really talk about how we are re-energizing education and public service alike. And Kim talked a lot about that when she was, that it's not just about efficiency, it's not just helping institutions, solve their tech debt, but it's really about helping them realize their deeper missions of equitable learning, smarter services, and better outcomes for students and citizens alike. So Zach, what are you most optimistic about in the future?
Oh, there's so much, I think, justifiable fear, uncertainty in education. A lot of hand wringing as we watch some institutions and practices that are very tried and true kind of tear at the seams a little bit. I think what gets me excited is conversations with students, conversations with teachers, where that flips on its head. And we ask, well, were those systems that were actually designed to be as equitable as they could be for everybody? I think those systems have stood in place, but our concept of equity, our sense of justice and of fairness has changed. And while certainly we should take an active role in what's happening, I think it doesn't have to be a negative thing. I think it's an opportunity for us as educators, as students, to really rethink these institutions. And AI, I think, gives us a tool to accelerate that transformation in a positive way.
Totally agree. And Ray, when one of the things that the keynote also emphasized was starting small but moving fast. Sure. That ability to really know where you're going on the journey. What advice do you have for institutions and agencies alike about how they begin?
That's a great question. It makes me think about, so I came up through the ranks as a software engineer. So I'm very familiar with sitting in rooms and designing systems and having conversations and getting stuck in those conversations on those small things that don't matter, that don't actually move the ball forward, right? Having those meetings about talking about starting and never actually starting. And so, I'd put a slight twist on the start small, move fast. I would say start small, but start now, right? Pick something that feels like it's providing friction in your organization and look for an opportunity to use AI to help you solve that problem. How can you relieve that friction? That's what we did with the onboarding process that I was describing. That's really the genesis of centerline AI that's out there keeping our officers on the streets more. That was the genesis of how we got there. We looked for small problems with high friction, identified those, and then iterated on those.
Makes sense. And Derry, I think we kind of have to make sure we touch on the big question, which is, we're all energized about the excitement around it, but there are naturally some concerns, especially around transparency, security, or ethics. What do you say to the audience to help them kind of move forward with confidence and know that this is the right journey to get on?
Absolutely. At least speaking for Anthropic, transparency, security, and ethics is core to our founding purpose and mission statement. And so across all of our work, all of our functions, it's just areas that we invest heavily into. Onto some specifics though, for transparency, I think we're one of the only model providers that consistently produces safety and model capability reports that really go into what Claude can and cannot do. On security, we're SOC 2 Type 2 certified, we're FERPA compliant in our product approach, but I think most importantly, we don't train on customer data. And so your institution's data stays yours. And then lastly, on ethics, obviously we train Claude to be very helpful, but also honest and harmless. And so those are kind of our 3 H's. And when you have those 3 kind of properties, you get, and you combine that with the product experiences that I mentioned before, you get a very positive experience in terms of the ethical component.
I think it's clear from this conversation that AWS and our partners like Anthropic and Instructure and Central Square are leading this movement, and as innovators and pioneers, and turning these into real impacts, real world impacts. I'd like to know what your closing thoughts are to the audience. What would you like them to take away from this conversation?
I think a lot of it is what's been said already, which is, AI can be both, kind of scary in some ways. It's a rapidly changing technology, but at the same time, it has so much potential to change everything that we know about education, know about public services for the better. And so, kind of repeating what Ray said, start small now, put your toes in the water, but really start now and understand what this technology can and cannot do so that you can also grow with it. Because I guarantee you it's going to move fast. And so, you want to get comfortable with it now.
Yeah, I'd maybe just reiterate some of what I was saying before. Growing up as an engineer, I always want to get my hands dirty on something. So lately, I've been playing with a lot of AI, especially in the evenings, just to understand what I'm dealing with and what I'm asking my teams to step up and do. And what I've noticed is it's not about typing the lines of code in anymore. It's using the depth of my domain knowledge to kind of orchestrate and be a conductor, if you will. I need more horns. I need more, strings over here. I know all of the pieces, and I can instruct the AI by breaking down what I'm trying to do and build those blocks. So that's the way I see things today. It's not intimidating if you realize that it's freeing you up to use these years of domain knowledge that you've gathered. So sort of see it that way.
I agree 100%. Would say, AI really shouldn't be an about face for your organization. It should be an accelerant to the vision that you already have, and an opportunity for you to really inspire and empower the people that you work with.
Well, we are certainly inspired by this panel and everything you shared with us today. Thank you for being such amazing partners to AWS, and thank you for being at Imagine.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Got a couple more minutes. I'm really excited for all the great work. Anthropic's Claude for Enterprise and Education, AWS Marketplace, and Instructure's Ignite AI is there. No Imagine keynote would be complete without celebrating our AWS champions, presented by the Center of Digital Government and the Center of Digital Education. This program recognizes education, edtech, govtech, state and local government leaders who are innovating on behalf of their students and their citizens. It's time to meet those 2025 champions, many who may still be in the audience. I know we've got it upstairs too. So please, if you're in the room, please stand and like to celebrate each and every one of you. Thank you. We can't wait to hear more about the great work that you're going to be presenting through the course. So thank you very much. On behalf, congratulations for being an AWS champion. So just as Chicago reimagined itself, we too stand at a moment of profound transformation. AI offers us the tools to construct a future for education and government that is more intelligent, equitable, and responsive. Include AWS in your AI journey. We're here to support your vision and to help you achieve your vital missions. The stories you've heard today are just from customers, but are not just examples. They are truly blueprints for the future. They show that by embracing AI, by daring to reframe, by committing to retrain, and seizing the opportunity to re-energize our institutions, we can build a stronger, more vibrant society. Technology is our enabler, but it's our shared commitment to serving our communities and drives lasting transformation. Let us continue to be inspired by each other and collectively shape future of where AI empowers every student, educator, citizen, and public servant to thrive. The foundation has now been laid, and in the words of all the great Star Trek captains, let's go make it so. Thank you and enjoy the rest of Imagine.